On Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, there is a meeting scheduled with the World Economic Forum to discuss preparing for Disease X. So we're going to talk about Super Bowl X. I'm not one to bring up sports randomly, but we're going to talk about Super Bowl X. And we're going to talk about this eclipse this year, the Great American Total Solar Eclipse that completes the X. So that will be on April 8th, 4/8. 48 is 24 plus 24. And we're in the year 2024. X is the 24th letter of the alphabet. Super Bowl X was almost exactly 48 years. If we can include the ending date, it's 48 years, including the ending date, from Super Bowl X until this meeting to discuss Disease X. And again, this meeting is set to occur on January 17th, so we have to include the ending date, because Super Bowl X was on January 18th. So one look at the score from Super Bowl X got me to thinking. So the score ended with Cowboys 17 and Pittsburgh Steelers 21. So the score, you see, is 17-21. And I was immediately reminded of a video I did a couple years back about the number 1721 and the smallpox inoculation. I'll leave a link in the description box. Now, I'm not saying that Disease X will be resurgence of smallpox. Supposedly that's been eradicated back in maybe 1980 or something like that. I have a hard time believing that it won't return, if it exists at all. So I'll take you back a couple of years. I believe it was 2021. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description box. But it was the 26th of August. I remember very clearly. I kept seeing the number 1721 a few times that day, and I finally just looked into what that number's all about. Turns out it's a prime. It's the 268th prime number. Again, I saw this repeating number on the 26th of August, which is 268. Again, the 268th prime number, 1721. And I just looked up that number and I found this book from Stephen Koss, The Fever of 1721, the epidemic that revolutionized medicine and American politics. So it had to do with smallpox. And I noticed if we use reverse ordinal gematria, the words smallpox inoculation equals 268. 268th prime again is 1721, and the score from Super Bowl X was 1721. Again, we're thinking about X, Disease X, the X eclipses. And once again, before I move on, that second eclipse this year, 2024, will be on April 8th, 4/8, which is 24 plus 24. Again, X is the 24th letter of the alphabet. If we do 24 times 24, of course, that's 576 months from Super Bowl X until this meeting, preparing for Disease X. And that's including the ending date. And I've said before, I don't just bring up sports randomly. There was a reason I looked into this. Partly because of the X. And then I looked at the score and I had to report on that. But I want to look at this other Super Bowl. I know some of you folks are going to find this interesting. I didn't do too much digging. Details about Super Bowl LVI, but I can leave a link in the description. I think I broke down the halftime show. But Super Bowl LVI is the exact midway point from when Corona was declared a pandemic, March 11th, 2020. The WHO declared Corona a pandemic. From that date until this upcoming meeting, preparing for Disease X, the midway point is February 13th, 2022, which was the date of Super Bowl LVI. And for those of you who know Roman numerals, you know that number is very significant to the Corona pandemic. But from that Super Bowl LVI going backwards 704 days brings you to the declaration of Corona as a pandemic. Going forward a span of 704 days brings you to that meeting. The World Economic Forum is preparing for Disease X. Now, 704 reminds me of something else. A special magic square. I've done a few videos focusing on this special magic square. It has these properties. Like any magic square, all the rows, all the columns, all the diagonals sum to the same number. And what's special about this is if you put it in a mirror, the way that the numbers are displayed with the 7-segment display, the numbers flipped backwards, like in a mirror, reflect a different set of numbers, but it's still the same. All the rows, columns, and diagonals sum to the same number as when you saw it the regular way. And if you flip it upside down, same properties. But if you add all the numbers in this magic square, the total is 704. And again, from this Super Bowl, a couple years back, LVI, going backwards 704 days brings us to the declaration of Corona as a pandemic. Going forwards from that Super Bowl, a span of 704 days brings us to this meeting, preparing for Disease X. I found it interesting, take it or leave it, but if you use all capital letters in a cipher called capitals added, used to be called Francis Bacon, but this cipher takes into account capital letters, and if you type it out in all caps, Great American Eclipse equals 704. And this is the Great American Eclipse. So America, think about Independence Day, July 4th, 7/4. So yeah, look up that magic square. And there's a number file video about that. Actually, I'll leave a few links. I found that magic square, and it was very interesting timing. So if you've seen my videos, you know what I'm talking about. And I believe there was something interesting about one of the reverse ciphers. If you spelled out each of the digits as words, all of the digits in that entire magic square. For instance, instead of 25, you'd type out 25, TWOFIVE. Instead of 18, you'd type out 1 and 8. Instead of 51, 5, 1, so on. Just the entire magic square. Type out each word that represents each digit, and you get a sum of 1,776. Of course, that's Independence Day, the original 7/04 in the year 1776. I wasn't around, you know. I don't know if that's exactly true, but that's the date we're given. That's the date that's drilled into our heads in school. And as I remember, Super Bowl X was in the year 1976. It's the bicentennial. So if you look up this Super Bowl, just flip through a few images, you're going to see it's you talk about how it's American Revolution bicentennial, 1776 to 1976. And not to get too complicated, really don't have a lot of time, but 1721, right? That's what this book is about. Smallpox in the year 1721. If you go from that until the Declaration of Independence, it's supposed to be, 55 years? That's the 10th triangular number. It's also the 10th Fibonacci number, 10. Like the Roman numeral 10 is an X.